a moment to introduce our panelists before we start the session. So our first guest for today is Miss Vandana Nair. Vandana, as many of you might be aware, is a public health professional who's been around for a long time. She's been here for over 20 years. She's worked on multiple thematic areas. She's worked on areas of HIV, TB, on young people's health, and her core area of expertise is actually to include, to understand the social determinants of health, behavior change communication, and qualitative research. Vandana has worked with some leading organizations in public health, namely UNICEF, Mamta, Jhpiego, and now for the last 3 years, she's been with the Center for Catalyzing Change. I just want to say, Vandana, I'm glad to know you, and I'm really glad that we met, I think, very recently. It's sad that we didn't meet earlier because I've been working in HIV since 2009. So sad that we didn't meet earlier, but I'm glad that we've met now as part of your association in C3. And I must say, I must I must share a tiny thing with all of you. Vandana is the most fabulous person to work with. I mean, we've had an amazing learning journey over the last few months. I'm sure Shankar would agree with me. So thank you so much, Vandana, for joining us, and thank you for taking time out on this Friday morning to be part of this panel.
My pleasure.
The next guest for today is Dr. Priyanka Kochar. Hi, Priyanka. So Dr. Priyanka has a specialization in adolescent and youth. She's worked in the area of SRHR, gender, and program management, and has been working very, very hard in making young people's lives better as part of her stint with Engender Health for the last 6 years. So a little bit about Dr. Priyanka. She's an implementation specialist. She's been in the public health space for the last 12 years. Her core areas of expertise are strategy, design, planning, managing and leading health programs, including providing technical expertise in the areas of health system strengthening, capacity building, policy, and governance. Oh my God. Wow, that's amazing. So Dr. Priyanka has previously engaged with other organizations. She's worked with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And she's also worked with PHFI in her public health experience. So thank you, Dr. Priyanka, for joining us. I'm so happy we had that chat yesterday. So one of the primary reasons why, I wanted both Vandana and Dr. Priyanka on this panel is because I felt that if we want to make this particular topic of lights, camera, action for impact a conversation rather than a very serious panel discussion, I felt who better than to talk to about it than the two of you. And yesterday when I was chatting with both of them, it really was a conversation. We didn't have to prep. We just had to talk, and it just very beautifully flowed. So thank you, Dr. Priyanka, for coming in as well.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I'm going to take a moment to introduce our third guest, who's yet to join. But maybe if I can just request the tech team to just give her a call and see if she's going to join. But without sort of holding up on the discussion, I'm going to just introduce her anyway. So the third guest for today is Shweta Tampan. She is leading the communications vertical in an NGO called Sneha, who's again focused on public health, and they work at the grassroots, so in Mumbai and other areas. So very, very interesting work that they do, which Shweta will talk about as well. So Shweta is a journalist turned development sector comms professional. She's been working in the development sector since 2012. So she did her media studies, and then she sort of went on to work for Hindustan Times and Mail Today. Before she went on to do her masters in public health, masters in social work from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She's worked in many organizations like Arpan, Adani Foundation, and now is with Sneha for the last year or so. She has a passion for gender and rights, and she has immense amount of experience working in the area of child sexual abuse. So that's a very serious topic, and she really enjoys working in that area. I remember having this conversation with Shweta, and why I really wanted Shweta on board is also because for Shweta and me, I think we're both media professionals turned development sector comms come program people. So for me, it was very, very exciting to have Shweta on this panel. Um, before we move ahead, I'm just going to spend a moment introducing myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Vinita. I am the founder of an organization called VIVA Development Strategies. We're a social sector consulting outfit, and we specialize in the area of communication. I used to work for the Times Group, but was very excited to transition to the development sector in 2009. Have worked on multiple thematic areas and very passionate of using communications for impact in the social sector. So very excited about that. Thanks, Shweta. So shall we dive right in? I'm glad all of us are here, so we're going to dive right in. So welcome everybody to the session that's called the Lights, Camera, Action for Impact. It's a very, very interesting topic. It's very close to our hearts. So even before we get into a Q&A and a discussion, I want to ask each one of our panelists, when I say lights, camera, action for impact, what is the one area that comes to your mind where you feel you can apply this? So if we can start with Vandana, what is the one area that you feel lights, camera, action for impact has maximum mileage?
I think it's in the area of digital learning for me. That is when I think of this and the kind of potential of impact that it has, I think, especially for girls. So,
Especially for girls. Okay, awesome. Priyanka?
For me, it would be, I would say, project documentation, or to be precise, being able to showcase, what impact you've made on the ground.
To be able to showcase the impact we've made on the ground. Awesome. And Shweta, for you?
Yeah, I would go, very similar to what Priyanka has just said, that I do feel that because we work with human beings and because we work with issues which affect human beings so much, I do feel that, the important thing is how we show that to the world, the impact that we are creating on the ground and how the transformation is happening in people's lives.
Amazing. How best to show human impact through the audiovisual medium. That's definitely what we're going to be talking about over the next 70, 80 minutes. So I'm going to jump into my first question, and that's for Vandana. Vandana, you said digital learning or e-learning, especially for girls. So it'll be really nice if you can throw some light on this topic. How do you think the audiovisual medium can really lend itself to digital learning or e-learning? Can you tell us a little about that?
I think we're still kind of just coming out of, the impact that COVID pandemic had on it, and it was also a time for big learning to, when we finally found that, when we can't meet physically, then how do we connect? So I think
Right.
that was one time when we realized the criticality that the digital technology and the digital media offers to, to connect. So and there is enough evidence to show that, especially with the cohort that I work with young people like Priyanka does, and for especially adolescents, I mean, there is enough scientific evidence to show that peer interaction is very, very critical. So which came to a total halt during COVID. But
Right.
then there's a Lancet, article which says that adolescents who could connect virtually, the impact of the COVID was mitigated because at least they were interacting with their peers, So that is the potential of digital connect that is there. So, and I feel that for that, especially in our country, we also know that digital access, there's a big divide, especially, it is very gendered. So, girls access to this so is very limited. So we have taken it on ourselves, kind of, ensure that there is digital access and they learn how to use this technology, especially adolescent girls. So I think that is where I am coming from. So.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting. Adolescent girls, digital, and I remember you even telling us at some point in time that if my girls can be on YouTube, why can't they be learning things that I want to give them? So much on that. We will talk about that in a few minutes. Priyanka, just moving on to you. You said documentation. You said being able to create an impression about the project, if I understand right. So can you tell us a little about that? And I have a two-part question here. One is, Do you think the audiovisual medium can lend itself really well to, documentation, or to maybe even engaging with donors? And what's your opinion?
Yeah, definitely, Vinita. So, I would like to start by the caveat saying that evidence is important and there is no shortcut to research. And while we are getting into all of that research, getting into the scientific learnings, it's very important that you're also able to bring out some, as my colleague was saying here, Shweta was saying, it's very important that you start capturing the human stories and be able to show the program impact. And I think audio visual medium, it has a lot of potential. And if you would, with the changing audiences, all of us are on reels now, and that's what we are consuming day in and day out. So I think not uh, not the entire set of audience that we work with, specifically the beneficiaries, not all of them are comfortable or be able to understand what research is saying. So I think if you're able to say a lot in a very little words, in an impactful way, in an engaging way, I think that has its own power. And I work with young people, and we recently did a very interesting project, and Vinita, you were a part of it, with WHO, where we engaged young people for COVID response. And until then, I thought I was young, but it was an eye-opening experience, because we did a rapid survey, and we checked with young people. Before this, we were planning to do some long 3 to 5 minute videos with to talk about COVID issues around gender-based violence. But when we did the survey, 92% of the young people said, like, Insta Reels is what we want to hear. That's what we consume. And it was totally an eye opener for me. I made my Instagram account only after that. So I think audiovisual, if said audiovisual medium, if it says things in a concise, impactful way, capturing, of course, the evidence and the human side of it, it does have a lot of potential. And I think also, if you see it from a donor angle, more and more donors, philanthropists, they are realizing the fact that human stories have to come out. It's, you just don't want your beneficiaries to be burdened under those numbers. So that's what I
Hmm.
said. Thank you.
So what I'm taking away is there's no compromise to impact, there's no compromise to research, there's no compromise to numbers, but human stories do have an effect on any audiences. So in fact that's the word I want to use, human stories. And now to use Shweta, you spoke about your community volunteers and how you very beautifully make testimonials out of these community volunteers and use that to actually communicate with donors from a fundraising perspective. So my question to you, more than the program, is actually very focused with respect to how do you really go about making these testimonials, with these community volunteers, because you are a comms professional, so you understand obviously how best to communicate to your audiences. So what is it that you do? How do you work with this community volunteer? How do you convert what they have to say into a testimonial video, and then how do you use it? It will be lovely to know.
Right. So, so we have this cadre of volunteers that we, develop. We train them. They are basically, it's part of our sustainability process. How to be sustainable is to create a community cadre of volunteers who can then take the program ahead, even when we are not there, and we can exit accordingly. So, but these testimonials, what we do is, see, when we look at volunteers, these are people from the community. These are common people, people who are living their everyday lives. But at the same time, they have identified with the cause, and they want to go beyond it, and they want to help their community and help their neighborhood. And
Right.
in our case, volunteers do it free of cost. So there is no cost involved here. So that takes a different kind of motivation. So to be going out there and doing something beyond you without any cost. So that is what we try to capture in these testimonials. So these testimonials are not just when we go and talk about these testimonials, one, we have to, of course, identify volunteers who speak really well, right? Or
Right.
they're good, they're not camera shy, they're good with camera. So if we don't find any and we feel that somebody has the potential, then we kind of do a little bit of training with them before actually taking the testimonial. So we do a little bit of training with them, that so that they get comfortable with a camera and a mic being in front of them. So that is one part of it. So you have to prepare your subject a little bit, but at the same time it should not look so prepared that that you have really prepared them. So it has to be that natural element has to be retained, but at the same time, little bit of preparation is important as to what they're going to speak and what they're going to say. The stories have to be authentic, because if you teach somebody or if you tell somebody you have to say this, it doesn't really work, because you can make out that they are not saying it with that that emotion doesn't come through. So it has
Right.
to be authentic. So it is something they have to tell their story. So two things that we usually focus on when we look at volunteers is, one is the impact they have created in the society, as in the community that they are in, and they're very proud of talking about it. Of course, they love talking about it. So we tell them, what did you do, how did you help, say, a mother who had a difficult delivery, how did you help her reach the hospital, and she was able to have get all the medical services at that moment, whatever is important. So those kind of stories we capture, and along with that we try to capture as to what has it done to her life, because a lot of
Right.
these women are coming from very conservative society, where they were not even allowed to step out of their houses. And these women are now coming out and they're talking about very taboo kind of topics in the community. So they're talking about contraception, for example. Contraception is an extremely taboo topic which is not easy to talk about, and they are after our training, they're going out there, they're taking a chance, they're really putting themselves out there with the community, with people with whom they're living every day.
Got
So
it.
we try to capture those elements of the story
In the testimonial itself.
in the
Amazing.
testimonials. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's very, very useful. In fact, what I'm also beginning to realize as I'm talking to the three of you is that, and it's an amazing conversation, because we have two communication for program professionals and we have two program professionals on the panel. So it's a very interesting discussion, because what I've always believed, and that's why even we at VIVA switched completely to programs for about 7-8 years before we went back to focusing on communications. Because what I believe is that the root of any work that we do in the comms front, in this case, developing audio visuals for impact, there is the root of it is in programs. Right? One needs to understand programs really, really well. On that note, I want to come back to you, Dr. Priyanka, to really ask you, because we are doing some work now where we are trying to develop a film for a particular project which is focused on the purposeful play curriculum. So it'll be really nice to understand programmatically as to what you do in this program, or what is the program impact or the program focus, so that audiences know exactly how then we can translate it to audio.
Yeah, thank you, Vinita. So maybe, so this right now, the assignment that we both are passionately following up is, capturing our learnings from curriculum that we have pilot tested, I would still say. It's called Purposeful Play Curriculum. So I'll just delve back into, how this thing came into play is, we did an adolescent consultation. We have a very long running project since 2017, or even before that, I think, in Bihar, called the Tarunay Project, where we engage with young people, adolescents, through the peer educator approach. And the program increasingly have now felt a need to involve beneficiaries. And I would say some 2 years back we did an adolescent consultation, an HCD workshop, where we tried to understand as program people, we have been I think very compliant in knowing that we know everything about adolescents. So let's plan programs in a way that we know best. But how about just ask the beneficiaries what they want? So this adolescent consultation told us very interesting things. Parent engagement is important, gatekeepers are important, but there was also a very interesting thing that the mandate that happens under the Rashtriya Kishor Swasthya Karyakram, where you continuously the peer educators, the change agent in the community, they meet the adolescents and the group. that if you want to retain or continue, having those group sessions, it is very important that you engage them beyond these, I would say, boring SRH, GBB information. So can we talk about sports? Can we talk about something that is skills or something that interests them? And yoga, meditation, sports, all of these things came in a big way. Some of the adolescents themselves recommended that how about we have yoga sessions in the morning, and then you can talk to us on those issues. So
Wow.
that's how the purposeful play curriculum came into being. We collaborated with an organization. It's called Coaches Across Continents. They basically use play as a medium to talk about various things. Not SRH per se, but that's the technical expertise that Engender has brought in, where we talk about. So we pilot tested, this approach. We trained some of our trainers, because peer educators were, they were a difficult lot, and we were also in a learning process. So we kind of engaged our own project staff, trained them on, some methodologies to talk about issues like SRH, GBV, all in fun way. 2 to 3 days, get up in the morning, 5 o'clock, play around the ground, and just nudge some little things so that they keep discussing these issues. And the experiences have been really great. So now we are right now in the process of transitioning this training to peer educators, which is definitely a challenging task. But this what the project is doing. And why I want to bring the audiovisual medium to this is, as I said, evidence would not be able, even if I plan a research study, it will not be able to bring out the energy, the enthusiasm that's there on the ground when these young people are engaging with themselves and playing on the ground. Like I remember through this activity, like in the first day, it's like ki kar kya rahe hain hum log, but eventually when you start nudging around those issues, things started coming up. Okay, this is what we are talking about. So I think for me, that's how the audiovisual is important. Of course, I would like to bring in research, an evidence angle to it, but once the program has matured a bit, but I would definitely still like to capture, again, coming back to the beneficiaries' perspective, the stories, the enthusiasm with which, this activity is being done on the ground.
Absolutely. And I think what's so interesting is the benefit, in your case, the beneficiaries itself, they are the ones who are taking the lead on the field, and they are the ones who are actually running the program on the field. So who better to capture in an audiovisual medium than them? In fact, since we're talking about programs, Vandana, I remember when we spoke last year, you told me that these people are so tech savvy. They're on the internet, they're watching YouTube videos. My girls have access to all these social media accounts, etc. So why can't we use that to exploit the opportunity of learning? And why can't I really be able to talk to them? I mean, they understand digitization, but we know there are some irresponsibilities or some I wouldn't say maybe irresponsible behavior is a word to use, but probably also to say that there are some dangers that come with the internet, and there are some issues that come with the internet, etc. So they also require a lot of coaching and hand holding, etc. So I know about your project in Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh with these girls. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure, Vinita. I think apart from sports as a mobilizer, which Priyanka just talked about, which we use especially to get boys into our program and talk about violence and substance abuse in Jharkhand, something we realized when we were doing our programming is that while girls do have access to digital, medium, as I said, to kind of watch YouTube and all, because they do get phones from their parents or their brothers and all to kind of go through educational content, as they say. So YouTube pe jaake they do look at it. So we also found that beyond that, it's also as I was discussing with you, that digital literacy and being ready for the 21st century kind of the world of work. Digital literacy is a very, very critical element, and especially for our girls, it is it is not so easy for them to get access. So which is why we kind of, for our existing programs, that where we are supporting government to implement RKSK in Jharkhand, Orissa, and Chhattisgarh, we thought that it was also an opportunity to layer in digital literacy to our program, so that, and then we connected those girls. We got a small support from Thomson Reuters, we got support from Oracle to kind of take this to our girls, and we took them through a structured learning of digital literacy, like apart from MS Office, how to be, how to do net banking, how to kind of and very critically, as you said, how to stay safe on internet, how not share your password, how to protect your, because they are on Facebook, they are on YouTube, they are on Insta, right? So these are
Yeah.
things that they do use for those who have access, or they will use a friend's phone or whatever, but they are there on social media, so their presence
Right.
is definite. And especially if you're sharing a phone, then how to even stay safer if you're sharing
Stay
a
safe
phone with
from other
someone,
family members. Yes.
yeah. So we have kind of, so we took them through those, and and then we also realized that COVID was another time that where girls put their the skills, whether it was transferring money because you couldn't go out, so you had to get onto net banking, getting information about the pandemic itself, and then sharing it with their other peers or family members, and also for entitlements and stuff, because they said that the money that came in from the government into the bank, they were able to track that, because that support did come to people, so so
Hmm.
all those things, I think that was, and we have our girls, she says, I have learned Mehndi on YouTube, and now I use it, I do it on weddings, and I'm earning money out of it. So this is
Wow,
one girl
that's
that,
interesting.
and then also another girl, I don't know whether you're aware, in villages, banks have these arrangements with people in the village where they are allowed to, transfer up to a certain amount of money for people who need it in the village. So they are,
Right.
so that transfer of money, say about 10 to 25,000, which can be, if you have a mobile and a smartphone and an internet connection, you can do it. So our girls
Hmm.
are even doing things like that. So, so it is small enterprise, so it gives you that power in your hand, and which you can put to
And they're
use,
able
and
to
even
really
young
exploit
age.
the right.
So
They're
that
able to
is
really
one.
exploit the digital medium. Hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that is something that we have done with our girls in Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh.
Amazing. In fact, Vandana, what I also wanted to ask you, because end of the day, with COVID or otherwise, we know that digital learning has a lot of potential, right? Now, what do you do when there are difficult topics to teach them? So, for example, we're working on something where we've helped you develop like a few modules here, but I want to hear it from you, and I want the audience to hear it from you because we learned this from you where difficult topics like understanding self or interpersonal relationships or gender-based discrimination, growing up, how do you protect yourself against violence. Now these are things where, so digital modules jo hota hai, it's on a phone, right? You take it on your phone, you will see a video and then you learn something. But these are topics like understanding self, interpersonal relationships, or even for that matter gender-based discrimination. These are topics where um, it's very difficult to not have a discussion or not have somebody work with you, or not do it through a live training, right? Because you can't just see a video, because you will have some questions, you will have some thoughts, maybe there is a need for reflection, maybe there is a need for a group activity and things like that, right, for better learning. So how do you manage something like this? I learned this from you, so I already know this, but I'm going to want you to share this with everybody.
Yeah, I think Priyanka will bear with me on this, that many a times the issues that we talk of, and our peer educators or the teachers or whoever we train, many a times they kind of subscribe that it is very important to talk about SRH, it's very important to talk about violence, but to be able to articulate it at times in front of, it's beyond their comfort zone. So I think these audiovisual clips or the digital medium can act as triggers, or they are there, so you don't have to say it yourself, the video is saying it for you, and then you can kind of supplement the discussion, so which I call is a blended model of kind of teaching. So we have this digital content, you use that, and then we have a facilitator, whether it's a peer educator, whether it is a teacher, or whether it is my own outreach worker, then they kind of pause the video there, then talk about it, and then ask the the adolescents or the teachers or whoever they are training can kind of come up with questions. So it covers, it also is you're saying it, but you're not saying it because you have the digital medium to back you, and you can then facilitate the discussion. So I think digital medium helps. It's kind of it's my armory. It's there in my, I have this video that I can talk about, and I can, so and also another thing is that at times when we are doing trainings in our cascade model, कि एक को train किया फिर वो आगे जाके किसी को train कर रहा है, there's a transmission loss, and then the person will talk about what he or she thinks is important. So that loss of information, if you have that digital medium in front of you and you have kind of summarized, it's there out in
Correct.
front of you, so you ensure that minimum messaging happens and that transaction loss or the transmission loss is minimized. So I think that is
why
something that
I find this very interesting, Vandana, because for us, like around COVID, we went like digital in so many ways. We launched our own tech platform for learning. We also sort of, started developing a lot of digital modules based on our capacity building experience. And for me, it was a very linear process, right? So when I say linear process, I was like, there's no replacing physical training. We all know that, right? You need the human element. You need that interaction. You need the trainer, trainee or trainer audience compatibility, rapport. वो तो irreplaceable है. We all know that, right? So I think what for us digital training was about, okay, then whatever you get from the physical training, the modules, etc., how do you digitize that and then have it as a reminder medium, put it up on a mobile platform or something like that, so that people have it as a ready reckoner, have it like something to go back on. But something like this that you just mentioned, which is a blended approach, I think it's fantastic because I remember you telling me yesterday that it also standardizes content, right? So when you're doing it in multiple locations, it's not something that, मतलब अगर यहाँ पे एक टीचर है, वहाँ पे कोई और टीचर है, झारखंड में कोई थर्ड टीचर है, छत्तीसगढ़ में कोई फोर्थ टीचर है, they're all able to, because they have a support of a recorded content, they're all able to refer to that or fall back on that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I'm going to just take a moment, Shankar, if you can just like project your screen. I want to take this opportunity to just share like 1 minute of something that a very interesting module with this blended approach that Vandana spoke about. So Shankar, if you can just share your screen and maybe show that, because I don't want this to be a very academic conversation. Unless somebody is able to see it, maybe it's difficult to apply and things. So
कुछ स्कूलों में पैड को डिस्पोज करने के लिए इंसिनरेटर या भट्टी होती है, जो पैड को डिस्पोज करने का एक
not visible. Yes, now
अगर ये आपके
it's fine, Shankar, it's visible now.
स्कूल में है तो बिना किसी शर्म के इसका इस्तेमाल करें. क्या कोई और उपाय है जो आप महामारी के समय संक्रमण से बचने के लिए करती हैं? हमारे साथ साझा करें. अब हम गतिविधि के अगले भाग में चलते हैं. स्लाइड में दिखाए गए कॉमिक्स को ध्यान से पढ़ें. दोस्तों, क्या दिखाए गए कॉमिक्स को आप समझ पा रही हैं? कॉमिक्स में किशोर इतने परेशान क्यों हैं? यदि आप इनके साथ होती तो आप इन्हें क्या सलाह देती? आपस में चर्चा कर अपने जवाब सुगमकर्ता को बताएं. और सुगमकर्ता से मेरा आग्रह है कि वे ये स्लाइड पॉज करें ताकि बच्चे ये सवाल देख पाएं और उनके जवाब पर आपस में चर्चा कर पाएं.
Thank you, Shankar. So I think what was really in time, this is really the practical application, right? So every time there is a discussion that you want to have, you have visual support for learning. The facilitator then takes on the discussion from here and interacts with the girls and really engages in a discussion. So thanks for this. In fact, Shweta, given that the hot topic right now is digital learning and digital training, and given that all of us here
Vinita, I think we're losing you.
Yeah.
Can't hear you.
It's Vinita's connection. Oh God.
Okay, I think we seem to have.
Maybe we can continue the discussion, Vandana. It was very well put when you talked about, the loss of information. I think really echo your thoughts, and it's such a powerful medium. If you really, those simple nudges, as you said, people, teachers, and the stakeholders that we have, it's so difficult in the Indian context, and you just providing those simple nudges, it would make so much of difference to all of us.
Absolutely. We have Vinita back.
Sorry, Vinita, we started conversing.
Yes. I mean, if you leave Priyanka and me anywhere, we will let the conversation flow anyways.
Yes, thank you so much for being patient. I realize that dog. No, that's amazing. That's it's amazing to know that.
Priyanka, I think, Vinita, I think maybe if you switch off your video, because I think you have some connectivity issues.
Hot topic is
So
digital training and digital.
which is something that, another thing that when we are using technology, I think one of the things that we, live internet is such a challenge in the areas that we work in, and affordability being another thing. So we have kind of the module that Shankar just showed is something that is in, we have made it so that it can be, put on a pen drive, and, our workers can just connect it to a Pico drive and, show it, so you're not dependent on internet. So it's also, kind of adapting the technology to the place that you're working and making it available in a, a user-friendly way. So while Pico projectors have the, it's a small projector. I'm sure Priyanka and everybody knows how we use it. So you can connect it to internet if you need, or you can also use it as a static medium to kind of project things. So we do use it in a big way in our for small group interactions, where we need to use digital technology to kind of. So that is something that we do. And what about you, Priyanka? I think interesting to see how sports is coming in a big way. We are using, and especially in the places that we work. I think for
Yes.
us in Jharkhand, football is a very big thing, and it's a big mobilizer, especially for boys. Because it's very difficult to get boys to come to sessions. So football for us has been a very good medium to get boys and get their
Yeah.
participation. So we are trying
So
to
we're just
record that.
kickstarting.
As I said,
We're
their
just kickstarting.
testimonials.
Oh,
Yeah, tell
awesome,
me.
awesome. We're just kickstarting this, and it's interesting. That I heard from you this, like that you have already tried and tested this, and I think you've been doing it for long. So I need to chat with you separately on this. I'm going to hound
Yes,
you
we'll do
after
that.
this.
I love this. You all are holding fort. Thank you so much. And sorry, my internet is not agreeing with me. Thank you so much. Given the hot topic was digital learning, I think I want to ask Shweta a hot topic. I think for today's digital learning for this part of the discussion, and also adolescents, because all of you work with adolescents, work with the girls, boys in different projects, etc. So Shweta, want to dive into a discussion with you really about how you've used digital learning, because you did speak about your smart library, you spoke about the app Rahi app that you have, and you're using that to engage adolescents. So if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a smartphone library is a very unique concept that we came up with, especially during the COVID. I think COVID is something that has forced all of us to look into, go digital and look deeper into digital media as a tool. So the smartphone library basically started as, because we realized that, like I think Vandana has also spoken about it, that everyone doesn't have access to a phone. So even if a family has a smartphone, it's not necessary the children are getting it or the adolescents are getting it. So, we started with a smartphone library in the community where they can come and take the smartphones for a few hours. They can do the certain whatever education related things that they want to look at, because a lot of school learning was also getting affected. So all of those things could be done with that smartphone, and then they give it back. Once they have used it, they give it back, and that's how the library concept works, and that really worked for us, and we have actually continued it beyond COVID now,
And what
because
kind of content do you put on it? Is it like
yeah,
what
so
kind of videos?
yeah, so we also with the adolescent, in the adolescent program, we have this cohort system where we also have modules. So we have modules. Our basic work is on anemia and malnutrition, but we have modules on gender, on sexuality, on mental health, because all of these issues are very important in the adolescent age group. So we also have developed a app called Rahi app, which is available, in which there are these modules which are in the form of animated videos. Okay, so we have these audio visual modules which are in the form of animated videos, and that is something we have been using with the adolescent age group specifically. Apart from this, we have also now developed an app where a web interface really. It's called Garima. This is basically for barefoot counselors across the world who are dealing with gender-based violence survivors, because we also have a program on gender-based violence. So Garima app again has this web interface again has some animated videos which basically basically teach professionals who are not necessarily trained counselors, technically trained counselors. They could be social workers who are then dealing with gender-based violence survivors, and they can access these modules from anywhere in the world. And the modules talk about how to prepare for a session. What should the first session look like? What are the emotions that you need to deal with? If you have to deal with any emotions, how do you deal with it? How do you help your client to deal with certain emotions, where how to the entire counseling process is something that has been converted into modules which people can take. So these are just some of the initiatives that we have done, especially considering it's the digital world that we have entered.
The
So
digital world, yes, absolutely. So what I'm taking, before moving into the world of cinema and donors and fundraising, I just want to wrap up the digital piece because it's so interesting. What I'm taking away from this discussion is number one, pace. I remember Vandana and I were discussing yesterday that the pace of learning gets better, quality of learning a lot of times, because trainers, I think when I got dropped out and came back, I heard Priyanka and Vandana discussing that people and their capacities are so different across geographies, and even within the same geography across different socio-economic backgrounds, etc. So capacities are so different. So digital can really help standardize content in a big way. Digital can help improve learning outcomes, hence quality of learning is better. I'm taking that away. I'm definitely taking away blended approach, Vandana, and I'm also taking away the whole platform part of it. So while yes, modules are important, platforms are important. Access is something I'm taking away from Smart Library that Shweta mentioned. So it's been very, very interesting. And scale, actually, I want to share a tiny story on scale. And I'm really missing Jhpiego on the panel right now. They have some very big visit from their Baltimore office. So they sit on the panel. But the reason I'm missing them is we developed this very interesting e-learning toolkit of 32 episodes for health workers, both doctors and nurses for Jhpiego. And what's really interesting is they've put that module up on the Indian Nursing Council website. Okay, and this is where I'm bringing in scale. So what essentially happens is every nurse that passes out of INC has access to this certificate course. So she can take, it's a 32 episode module. So depending on the topic she wants, she can take a particular topic, or she can do the entire certificate course, which makes it accessible and scalable. Learning is scalable due to digitization. So I think that's what I'm taking away from this. I'm going to move for the next 10-15 minutes into the whole lights, camera, action for impact, but in the documentation and fundraising space. And I'm going to jump back to Priyanka here. So Priyanka, you spoke about the purposeful play curriculum. I remember you also spoke about human stories, not ignoring research, but human stories playing an integral role. And you and I have been discussing for the last few weeks the importance of a local hero, right? So when you talk about your purposeful play curriculum, who is your local hero, and why do you feel? So let's imagine that we're making like a 4 or 5 minute. Why imagine we are making a 4 or 5 minute film, right? And it's a short film that we're making, and we want to have a hero in this film. So given purposeful play curriculum, who is the hero, the local hero that should be highlighted, and why?
I think for me, it would be my peer educator. My peer educator, girls, boys who have been there, they are in the community. And one of the most common reasons is like I think it's quite important is that your hero has to have like a sense of belonging to the community that you want to impact at the end of the day. So your peer educator, there is this person is closer to the community. He has a sense of he or she
He or she.
or her, they have a sense of belonging to the community. There is there is option of personal relationships. When you're doing a thing like sports curriculum, it's easier said than done, to be honest. So if you have a person in the center who has personal relationship with the people who are there in the community, I think that would make impact. And at the end of the day, as INGOs or as people working in this sector, what's most important is if your program is sustainable. And if you really want to make your program sustainable, community ownership has to come, and that will come only if you bring in change agents, not just keep on treating them as beneficiaries, but actually bringing them in the center of your dialogue, center of your interventions, and making sure that they carry your torch ahead in the community rather than you pushing them all the time to do that.
Amazing. So your change agents in this case, or your local heroes, are peer educators. In fact, as you were talking, I just got an idea, Priyanka. We spoke about donors. So can you also tell me a little bit, before I share my idea, we spoke about donors. So if you can tell me a little bit about how maybe an audiovisual film like this can help create a conversation with the donor, and why an audiovisual medium?
I think it again comes back to the part that we are all humans at the end of the day, and whenever you're approaching a donor, given the kind of technical expertise that they come from, whatever, at the end of the day, these stories do matter. And I recently we did a very interesting, it was a more of a grant review meeting with a very large donor for us, who is USAID, and interestingly, we were presenting research. This is numbers, data, and everything. But what I heard from them was, do you have any human stories? What if you have? So I started talking to them. Okay, like this is something happened. If I can give you an example, not from this project, but some other project, we did another very interesting UNICEF project where we engaged adolescent girls champions to talk on newborn related issues. So to improve the survival of newborn girls. This is something we did in Sitamarhi only, and till date, it was done in 2020. Till date, I get calls from my peer educators saying that, "Ma'am, हमको phone आते हैं जब भी गांव में बच्चा होता है, we are being called upon," and the stature that you have lifted for us is like the way the society is now treating me. They think इस लड़की को कुछ आता है. पहले what they used to think earlier, the community used to think ये कर क्या रही है, like she's not getting money for what she's doing, she's just wasting her time, school miss करती है, all of that. What is she doing? Now she has a stature in the community. So that's the story I want to bring out. And I've always,
even after the project.
This is 2 years after the project. And they're still being called on. So as technical person, I would always say, fine, when I talk to my young girls about newborn, priorities at the end of the day, because she's an adolescent girl, so, I would improve her knowledge. But see what you have done to her. Like, you're building her leadership skills. You are just, elevating her level. You're giving her power. And this is what gives her negotiating skills tomorrow to kind of, talk to her mother, her father or whatever, saying that I am capable of doing this. So I think that's what we need to bring. And I think donors want to hear this.
Donors want to hear it, right? Even beyond, yes. I mean, like we always say, but they want to hear this. In fact, one idea that I got from what you said, whether it was these girls who kept being called upon even after 2 years of the project, or the peer educator that you spoke of in the purposeful play curriculum project, I also think, because you mentioned the term change agent, right? I also think there is a lot of power probably even using these audiovisuals as a community mobilization tool. So just imagine, like, just a 2-minute film, okay? It's not let's keep it simple. Let's keep it as simple as possible. What is the least that will get us the maximum, right? A 2-minute film about a peer educator. If I just have to think, this is a person who's working in like either Sitamarhi or in Gaya district, rural Bihar, has just, is 15, 17 years old, is in the community, has just started, working with this project. And if this person is able to describe the problem in that community, saying people didn't talk about sexual and reproductive health, people didn't talk about gender. And then I was taught, like I was recruited by Gender Health and I was taught how to do this. And today I just use like fun ways to talk about it. And I see that, the human beings in the village, the girls, the boys that are my age, their parents even, maybe some other community members are more open to this. And I feel very good that, I mean, you've told me stories on how they feel. They feel a sense of achievement, right? Feel a sense of pride. They feel a sense of, that they've been responsible for some sort of community change. So they are change agents. And if we're able to tell these stories, I also feel, why not use it as a community mobilization tool? So tomorrow when you're going to some other district or to some other location and you show a 2-minute video saying, "Aapko pata hai, Sitamarhi mein aise there was somebody who did this," and you're showing that video which has an impact, I believe it can even act as a great community mobilization tool, apart from being a fundraising or a donor engagement tool as well. In fact, I want to come to Shweta because she is a comms professional and she also spoke about, so while we're saying community mobilization tool, fundraising tool, Shweta, you also spoke about, case stories where it's not just, there are two parts to it, right? One is the service provider, jiska you can make like these short videos, whether it is, say, a peer educator or an ANM, we've done that in the past, or it can also be the beneficiary itself, right? Who has been impacted by the project, where you can have brief videos. So you spoke about case stories when we were discussing, Shweta. If you can just throw some light on that and how you've sort of documented this.
Right. So, case stories or impact stories are these are stories we capture from the field, and so these are of women and children because that is our main focus as at Sneha. The target group is women and children in vulnerable settings in the urban areas. So, for example, it can be very effective because, for example, if I can capture a video which is showing a mother who has a newborn, and the mother is talking about how her child's weight when he or she was born was 900 grams, and then with Sneha's guidance the child today is healthy. So to capture that kind of shows an impact in its own way. So it doesn't always have to be a very quantitative way of showing impact, saying this many people we reached out and this many women we work with, but a lot of these human stories also help to show impact, right? So it's with audio visual you have so much of options, so many options as to how you want to show this. You capture this story, how do you capture it? You have amazing amount of ways of doing it. So like for example, you of course you start off with identifying a very strong and powerful case story which and you need to know what you want to communicate, right? So what is it that you want to tell? That has to be very clear. And once you have that purpose clear, then you can, you have, so I'm sure almost all, whether it's Vandana, Priyanka, I'm sure all of you guys have these, people who on the field who are capturing stories in a document format in some way or the other. They're writing it down as case stories, and then you identify the best ones from it. You try and reach out to these beneficiaries or these people you are impacting, and then when once you identify them, I think some of the important things probably a video should have while showcasing these stories is one, of course you need to have consent. We are very strong on that you need to have consent of the beneficiary and the person you are talking with. Without consent it doesn't work, right? So that is very important. We even have consent forms, like physical consent forms, which we have in Hindi, English, in Marathi, in all languages, so that people can read it, sign it, and they know what they are getting into. You have to be very clear what you want to show. It has to align with your brand. Okay, so for example, as Sneha, my brand is of hope. Okay, we believe in hope. we show a hopeful future or a hopeful work. So we don't necessarily show any, women and children in very sad kind of situations. Ek bilkul aisa patla sa bachcha who's not eaten anything, even though we are talking about malnutrition, but we
Positive
don't.
stories.
Yeah, so we don't show that. We show hopeful, positive stories. And maybe you need to try to show the context. So, for example, what is the community that they're living in? So you can take some shots from the community. You can take, maybe the mother is sitting inside her house when she's speaking. So, you can see the house, like it's a one room tenement which is there. You can see the kitchen is right there behind her, and you are sitting and taking. So there are,
Amazing.
yeah, so we talk like that. And then we make sure that they talk in their own language. So, for example, in Snehas, a lot of times we have our, Sneha community organizers who go out there in blue coat, okay, which has a Sneha logo on it. So, a lot of times people will have language like Sneha दीदी मेरे पास आई थी, उन्होंने मुझे ऐसा बताया, or they will say कि वो blue coat वाली दीदी आई थी. So
They have
we
a
keep,
recall.
yeah, so we keep that language. We don't change that. We keep that language. And then for the foreign donors or for donors who need something in English, we will try and subtitle it so that it
Yes.
looks natural. It is not something we are trying to, put it in a studied manner, etc. And in some cases, wherever there is confidentiality, which is important, for example, if it's gender-based violence. So in gender-based violence, if you are taking a survivor's testimonial or a survivor talking about her journey through the
There are
entire
some sensitivities.
counseling. So there are some issues like confidentiality. So you can't show her face. So then you blur the face, or you make sure that the person is comfortable with it. If she is ready to show her face and identity is fine. If she is not, you need to respect that. So I think
Right.
it's very important that while you have a purpose of communicating and capturing that the case story, but you need to keep the dignity and the respect of the person of whom you are
Absolutely.
capturing the story as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is really, really interesting, and this actually gives rise to one thought that I'm having, which is really about. I mean, this is under the gamut of what we call voices from the field, because end of the day, these are all voices, whether it is beneficiary voices, whether it is peer educators, even when there are service providers, say an auxiliary nursing midwife, she is working in that community, right? She is part of that ecosystem, and then she goes and provides a service in a nearby health post or health and wellness center. So they're all community members. So I see this as what I call voices from the field, and I really hope, and I'm so glad, Shweta, you mentioned a positive story. While that is a reflection of Sneha's brand of hope, I am a firm believer that positive stories work better than any other story. You don't want supporters who to come and support out of guilt or disturbance, right? You want to showcase impact. You want to showcase the change you've been able to that you've been able to bring about. On that note, actually, I want to take 2 minutes to play a video because it's so beautifully tying into this conversation where, I mean, the whole part of positive stories. Like, how do you talk about the problem, but you showcase that person has come out with a solution? So I'm going to take a moment to showcase this video. Shankar, you're up again.
Sure. Okay, I'm starting.
माझं नाव समिंदर बालाजी बोळगे आहे. मी एक महिला शेतकरी आहे. मला 5 एकर शेती आहे. मला शेतीमध्ये उत्पन्न जास्त होत नव्हतं कारण शेती कोरडवाहू होती. मला शेतामध्ये 10 ते 12 क्विंटल कापूस होत होता. आमच्या गरजा पूर्ण करण्यासाठी आम्हाला शेतावर अवलंबून राहावं लागते. पहिला आम्ही कमाईसाठी बाहेर गावला कामाला जात होतो. माझी कमाई शेतीवर अवलंबून आहे. माझी शेती पाण्यावर अवलंबून आहे. एवढ्या पैशावर घर खर्च होत नाही. मला वाटत होतं की जागा आमची वेस्ट जाईल शेती तलाव केल्यानं, पण माझं मत चुकीचं होतं. आता माझ्या शेतात भरपूर पाणी आहे. आमच्या जनावराला भरपूर पाणी आहे पिण्यासाठी. आमच्या शेतात 18 ते 20 क्विंटल उत्पन्न होते. आता आमच्या शेतात गहू, ज्वारी आणि माशा पण टाकल्या आम्ही. शेत तलावामुळे मला 2 उत्पन्नाचे साधन निर्माण झाले. आता आमच्या शेतात पाणी असल्यानं आम्ही बाहेरगावी कामाला जात नाही. आता आम्ही सोबत राहतो आणि सोबतच काम करतो. जास्तीच्या कमाईमुळे आता आमच्या पक्क्या घराचे स्वप्न पूर्ण झाले. पहिलं ही शेती खडकाला धडका होती, पण शेत तलावामुळे आमच्या जीवनाला नवीन दिशा मिळाली. ही माझी लाईन आहे. मला वाटते की सर्व शेतकऱ्यांनी आपल्या शेतात शेततलाव करून घ्यावे आणि त्यांचं उत्पन्न त्यांनी वाढवावं.
So what I'm really taking away from this segment, which is because we have 15 minutes and I really want to open it up for questions from the audience. But what I'm taking away from this section is human stories, very, very important. Donor is interested in impact and impact figures, but more interested in real life stories, or as interested in real life stories. We can have two types of stories. Maybe we can have it from the service provider's perspective. We can have it from like case stories that Shweta, you spoke about, from the beneficiary's perspective. There are different use cases. I think that's one thing I'm taking away. It can be used for, of course, fundraising. We didn't speak about social media, but yes, it can be used in social media as something that, I think it has a lot of potential to be used in social media. It can also be used, where you can show change agent stories, and it can be used for community mobilization as well. I'm taking away that confidentiality and working with the beneficiaries by being sensitive to their needs is very important. So that's what I'm taking away from this. I have one last question for each of you who are here. But as I'm asking that question, I just want, also keeping time in mind, I just want to tell the audience, if you all have questions, please start putting it in the chat. You have the chat box, you have access to the chat box. So please start putting in your questions if you have them. I know there's a question already from Dr. Priyanka that I'm going to ask Shweta. That's going to be the first question that we ask. But please put in your questions so that I can sort of come to that as soon as I finish with the last segment. So the last segment, I think my first question is to Vandana. Vandana, we know you've been working for 20 years in the sector. How do you wake up every day and start every morning, day after day? And what is it that makes you want to, work in the sector even after 20 years?
I was in Jharkhand last week. We had taken our governing board members for a visit, and this was the first time they were actually seeing the faces behind the numbers that we share in our governing body meetings. And they were so. I think there. I mean, I have many stories, but I will tell you one where I met this boy who's in class 9 now. And he said that he'd started smoking when he was in class 6. So he would been smoking for 3 years, and ever since we have a Rohini Nilkani philanthropist supported project where we are working with boys in Jharkhand, and we used football. And so he says that one Sunday morning when he went to play football, then he found that his best of his players was missing. And then when he went tracking them, he found that he was sitting in a session that was being run by our organization, by our, outreach workers and our peer educators. And then how he became a part of that project. Of course, they play football also, but then how he has given up smoking, and he's shared that journey of how from 3 cigarettes a day he came down to 2 to 1, and now he's, and how. So I think being able to get a young adolescent to actually think and take action and being able to change and then become a change maker, I think that is what gives me the energy to wake up every morning and do what I do.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing, Vandana. In fact, what's beautiful is the last line, from being a smoker to a change maker. I love that. Thank you. Priyanka, same question to you with a little bit of a twist, which is that I know your focus is adolescence. I know you and I have had conversations where you've told me कि यार काम सब एक तरफ है, but you know when I'm sitting in a room in a panel discussion with the adolescents or just having a chat with them in a room, that's what gives you most joy. So yeah, would like to maybe know more about that if you have a story to share or anything that you'd like to share.
Yeah, Vinita, as Vandana said, I think for me again, the best part of working with young people is that they are the most engaging, most intriguing audience, and they have. I think again they have much more to teach you than you can actually teach them. So every project that I have done, every project that I have worked with young people, I come out as a new person. Or every conversation that I had ever had with a young person. And I think also what adds to to the beauty is that they don't tire. Like it's not like with adults, you reach a certain point, there's so much of energy, there's so much to teach you. And they're and what somehow makes me sad sometimes is that while they are have the same challenges as us, but the circumstances maybe create challenges for them, which they are still able to meet with determination, what you call integrity, or motivation, all of that. They're beating it. I again a story from one of my peer educator. She was my peer educator 2017, and now as per Government of India's guidelines she has aged out. So she's now my trainer for this purposeful play. So when you see those young people, who were a 16-year-old girl who was with me at some point in time as a peer educator, and now she is the trainer for other peer educators, and people respecting her in the community, I think that just gives you the kick, and you kind of feel good about that you're on the right path. So I would continue striving to do that.
That's lovely to know. That's lovely. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Priyanka. And I'm really glad we are working with you on that project and we get to go to Bihar. We're looking forward to that. And Shweta, last but not the least, and more like a, I get you, you get me, because we're both, we escaped, if I can say that, we escaped from the media and we sort of jumped into the sector not knowing how much satisfaction it will give us, I think, when we probably joined. So my question to you is really that, same question. Same question, because there's a different story that comes out from everybody. So, what makes you wake up every morning and come to office, in spite
So
of
I'll,
the traffic?
yeah. So it's like I'll tell you that there are so many things happening. But the thing is that unless we tell that story, people don't really know the amount of work that goes into creating a change or bringing about a transformation. I still know of people, like when we connect with certain brands, for branding purposes at various events, etc. When we give them stories of, say, gender based violence survivors who are coming to us, and we tell them, okay, so recently in fact we gave somebody, they wanted some testimonials, some one liners from us, and as to reasons why survivors have come to us and said that, okay, this is the reason that my husband beat me up. Okay, so we gave them a list of reasons. So जैसे खाना टाइम पे नहीं बनाया तो इसके लिए मारा, या बच्चे की पढ़ाई ढंग से नहीं हो रही है उसके लिए मारा, स्कूल में ढंग से नहीं जा रहे हैं बच्चे ने, अच्छे कपड़े नहीं पहने थे उसके लिए मारा. I mean, there were so many reasons, and the immediate reaction of that person, because they were a ad agency. So the immediate reaction of theirs when they came back to us saying, wow, I mean, this is so difficult, what you are dealing with. These reasons themselves are so traumatic to just even think that these are the reasons that people can use to beat somebody up. And for me, I, in my head, I was thinking, you don't know half of it. You don't know half of it. This is like nothing. You should actually see the stories that we get. We have not even given you the full extent of it. So I think it's very important that while this transformation is happening, that there are amazing people like Priyanka, Vandana, all of these guys are doing so much of work on the field, on with the people. And I think it's important to tell these stories, to celebrate the fact that somebody is going beyond their own life. And it's not like their lives have stopped. They have their own issues also. It's not like they don't have any domestic issues, they don't have children, they don't have in-laws to take care of, husbands to take care of, but they're going beyond that, and they're working towards helping someone else. And it's important to tell those stories, and I think that's really what motivates me to do this job more and more. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Shweta. Now given this conversation, I'm also itching to share one thing, so I'm going to share that. I think when I came to the sector, I joined as a communication professional at NACO. I was working for the Mumbai Maharashtra SATS as Joint Director IC. And then at some point I felt, yeah, this is not enough. I want to do programs. I want to get deeper into programs. So we started VIVA in 2013-14, and I got very in-depth into programs. But now I think over the years, after thinking through it and getting a lot of program knowledge in the last 8 years, what I feel is, if I have to answer the same question for myself, what makes me want to wake up and start this every day? And that's also why this panel discussion is, I want to really engage people in unleashing the power of, audio visual medium तो ये topic है panel discussion का, so we can park that for now. It's just 10 minutes left. But in a more in-depth manner, what I want to say is the power of storytelling, right? Audiovisual medium is a medium, but there are so many stories. I mean, the three of you couldn't help but share a story in your last remarks. So there are so many stories, and they all need to be told. They all need to be heard. They need to be told in a certain way that it has impact, so that more stakeholders come into the sector, more people are really having some sort of inclination to engage with the development sector in some way or the other, even if they are private sector folks. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm really happy that we had this discussion. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for taking time out on a Friday morning. Thank you for sharing very in-depth, deep feelings that you all have, which is important. Otherwise, it would be just another boring discussion. So thank you for sharing with all your heart. We have time for 2 questions. So I'm going to just read out the questions, and we take it from there. So there's one question that says, I want to know more about, I want to know how do we show people who are suffering from bone marrow problem, and basically, I think the problem is bone marrow or liver problem, and if we want to show that through an impact story, how do we show that? I'm going to take that question, and then there's another question which also I will just read out. It would be nice if any of you can answer it. Can audio visuals be presented to donor meetings along with a proposal in donor meetings? I think some of you have answered it on the chat, but for the larger audience, it would be nice if you can repeat that. And I remember Priyanka had a question for Shweta, saying that child sexual abuse is a very difficult topic to talk about, to portray in the audiovisual medium. And I see this whole bone marrow, child sexual abuse, not similar spaces, but difficult topics, right? Like Jhpiego also, Shweta, you said is a difficult topic. So child sexual abuse, how do you bring it in a story? How do you do that? So Shweta, maybe we can start with that, if you can.
Sure. Yeah. So see, as I see, every issue is difficult. So Dr. Priyanka, I think all of you are working on very difficult issues. So I don't think any one issue takes precedence over the others. But yes, these are definitely sensitive issues which need to be dealt in a very sensitive manner. And in terms of child sexual abuse also, you don't necessarily have to show the act, for example. That is something you can keep out. You can talk about prevention a lot more. You can talk about cases where whatever little details that the survivor is ready to share, you can share that. You can talk through counselors. That is another way of doing it. That you can talk through the therapists, the counselors, or the trainers who have worked with the particular survivor. So,
Right.
or look at parents doing the interviews rather than the child getting into it.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah, so there are quite like there are different stakeholders involved, and you can use all of those stakeholders rather than actually involving that particular case, and you don't have to get into the details of the case at the end
Of the
of the day.
case.
Yeah, because we are not trying to show the case. We are trying to show that there is a solution, there is a way of getting out of it, and there is a way of dealing with it in a positive, healthy coping manner, right? So you don't necessarily have to talk about, oh, this was the case, how gory it was, or what happened, and
Right.
all of that is not necessary. But you can
In
talk
fact,
about prevention. You can talk about therapy part of it. You can talk about all of those things, or medical, legal, if you need. You can talk about what the provisions there in the POXO Act, etc. So those are the things you could talk about. So that's what you can bring out through the videos. Is
and
my
also,
take.
I think what we do sometimes, and this is also to answer the question on bone marrow or liver, bone marrow problem or liver problem. What we also do is, see, end of the day, we said, right, it's a human interest story or it's a human story. So we need to really go, like one of the processes that we have is we go after we identify the real hero or after we identify the person who has to be the protagonist of the film, we really spend a lot of time engaging and understanding the story.
Yes.
Because then you're able to pick up the nuances that you can use for writing the character sketch or writing exactly what you want to portray. You don't have to portray. So even in something like if somebody has a liver problem, you have to understand the story कि क्या problem था वो उसमें से बाहर कैसे आए, and how that led to impact, and how many people you've helped through that. So it's really about getting the nuance of the story. So that's really something I'd like to share. I know we are hard pressed for time, so I'm gonna Dr. Priyanka, I know you have 11 o'clock engagement as well. So I'm going to take one question. If anybody can answer this, there's a very nice question that says that what is your most favorite social impact film that you may have ever seen? If there's anything that comes to your mind, please share. Need some thinking. There was one film I remember, Girl Effect had made it. No, I mean it's actually contradictory to what we're talking here because there was no human story. But I remember it. It was a very beautiful film. I'll maybe share it. We can get Deepak to share it with everybody in the audience. So Girl Effect had made this film. It was completely animated, लेकिन इतना effective था. The way they
It's about
treated
keeping girls in school, and if
yeah,
she falls out, it's a safe space. I think it was a girl effect animation that, oh, it was a wonderful
absolutely. It
one.
was an animated film. There was no human story, but very effective. Yeah, and one film
I
I
have
really
mentioned
liked.
Harvey Milk's entire, it's a very beautiful film. And
Which
then, of
one?
course,
Which one?
Philadelphia. Milk is a film on gay rights, I
Okay,
think.
good.
So, and
Awesome. We'll note
Philadelphia.
that. That's very interesting. Milk. I also remember Mandeshi. Mandeshi has some just YouTube Mandeshi film. Beautiful film. There's one on. There's a hero called Kera Bai. Hero. Gender neutral, if I can be. Kera Bai
Yep.
is a local woman. Such a beautifully told story. I think if anybody gets time, please look it up. It's really nice. Any other
I
last
think for
comment?
I think for me also, I think the films that came with the Ghanti Bajao campaign, they were quite impactful. Specifically,
Bell Bajao
I
campaign.
yeah, Bell
Ah,
Bajao, and specifically, I
well,
remember where a young boy is, looking at a girl, and then her mother is standing there, his mother is standing there, and she kind of narrates that same experience. Oh, it was very good.
this
I
was
mean,
on
powerful.
GBV, right? The Bell Bajao
Yes, it
campaign.
was on GBV. It
Oh,
was on
it's
GBV.
beautifully done campaign. Yeah,
Beautifully
beautifully
done.
done.
Yeah, made by Breakthrough. I think they were
Breakthrough.
wonderful. It had Moman Irani and all those people. It was
Very
very well
nice.
done.
Awesome. Any other last comments? We have 1 minute to go, and I don't want to hold anybody up.
I think
From
I
the
put up
panel.
our
Any
YouTube
last comment from
link
the
also. I think I've put our YouTube link, and we have made small clips on gender issues. We've taken films, we've done various things, and kind of made a little film. So I've put the link for those who are interested can also watch.
Thank you, Vandana.
So
And Vandana was also kind enough to say that once She's happy to share the modules that they've made with the larger audience at this point in time if you all want to use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any last comments before we say bye? Shweta, Vandana, Priyanka?
I think it has been a lovely panel, more of a conversational discussion between friends. So pleasure to talk to you again, Vandana and Shweta. Pleasure to be in touch, and let's catch up someday.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Vinita, you've been a wonderful moderator. I think the vibe that we are giving, all of us, is because of you. You bring that energy out.
In spite of internet and traffic issues, we made it. So I'm glad we did.
Yes,
Thank you so
I
much.
also want to say the same thing. Thank you, Vinita. Thank you for having me in the panel, and you definitely made it very easy for us to, I think, have discuss some very important topics. And I hope we were
Thank
able
you.
to give some information out here. which people
Absolutely,
can-
very insightful. I saw Priyanka and Vandana writing down a lot of things, so you definitely made it insightful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, then.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.